growing up in Colombia has given me a perspective from which to look at the world. So it has defined my work 100%. Being I have always been interested in violence, not only because I'm Colombian, but because I believe violence defines the ethos of our society. So I have always been exposed to extreme violence through the news, through media, and later on in my life I decided to go to the countryside and interview victims of violence to experience it firsthand. So I have been trying to become like a secondary witness. I've been trying to be the witness of the real witness of the violence. And from then on, I have made all of my pieces, every single one of them, based on interviews I have conducted with victims of violence. Not only Colombians, by the way. I think Colombia is a violent place, but actually we live in a really violent world. So whatever happens here is repeated endlessly, endless number of times all over the world. So I'm interested in places where the trace of violence can be looked, can be seen. I'm interested in places where the distinction between soldiers and civilians is being erased, where life has become almost impossible. It is the stakes of politics. And that it's not only Colombia, unfortunately. I wish it were, but it is worldwide now. I believe if you see a chair, that the chair invites the presence of a person. So for me, it's very important to use chairs or to use tables. I'll give you an example. For example, when I was working on this piece, Tabula Rasa, I thought that we live in a gender society, so men are encouraged to take, and women are encouraged to give always, or to take care of people. So I decided to use tables when referring to sexual violence, and because I thought tables were a good metaphor for the role women play in the society. It's always offering, it's always giving. And then I took those tables and I broke them into splinters, teeny tiny splinters, hundreds, thousands of splinters. And then I joined them together in order to create this fragile piece. So the table was completely destroyed, and every time we place a little splinter next to the adjacent one, it was like a resistance. It was like giving this piece of furniture a second opportunity to be a table. But it wasn't a real strong table in which you could eat or you could write. It was simply a fragile, almost trembling table. And I think that was a very good metaphor for the way these victims of sexual violence are always facing their life on a daily basis. I think art is required all over the world. It's not only a luxury for richer societies. I think the experience of the people who are suffering political violence and poverty is absolutely essential to understand the condition of the world. The world has created inequality. It has created that inequality through brutal conquest, through colonialism, through imperialism, and we are like an underside of the history of success from the global north. The global north will never have the riches it has if it weren't because of the poverty, because it created poverty in the colonized world. So it is very important to understand that the experience of every human being it's material for art. It is important that it remains in art. So we are here telling our story retelling our past. The story of the Global South can not only be told by the Global North, by thinkers or historians or philosophers or artists. We need to tell our own story. So it is so important to tell the story of our past. We are reworking our past, not only the present, but the past, because in the past, we have been treated with huge injustice. So we need to write that story. It's those vulnerable and anonymous victims that I want to talk about. And I think addressing those issues, those experiences, and making them into works of art that can be seen all over the world, it is important. Because it means that memory, the memory of those experiences, will not be forgotten. And every time one of my works is being presented in a museum in any city in the world, that experience comes alive again. Fragmentos, I think Fragmentos is my favorite piece because it's the only one that is truly collective. I did not have the idea to make a piece with the arms that the guerrilla gave up. That idea was thought by the negotiator, the negotiating team, by the army and by the guerrilla. They all decided that something should be done, like a work of art should be done. They decided that a monument should be made with the arms, and I decided not to make a monument. They gave me these arms, and when I had the 37 tons of weapons, and I realized that those arms did not deserve to be placed on a pedestal and become a monument, because they had created death and destruction and pain and damage, and therefore they should be hammered by the victims. So I recruited a group of women who had been raped by armed men, or women who had been sexual slaves by armed men, and they were hammering the metal. And in that sense, these women were brought into the center of the peace accord, which was the main historical event happening in Colombia at the time. And they were given the possibility of destroying the very arms that have attacked them. And this process gave them dignity, gave them their body back, they gave them the strength again, and it was a really beautiful process, transformation to witness. So it is very rare that an artwork can have a real effect, because I think art is powerless. I mean, I cannot save a life, I cannot heal the wounded, I cannot make whole what has been broken, what has been destroyed. But in this case, with this piece, I mean, 13,000 weapons were destroyed. And that is very meaningful, because that means saving life. And at the same time, the life of the victims were transformed. So it is maybe the only work that I can see that actually changed something in reality. And I know this is a unique occasion. I know I will never be able to achieve that again. And for that reason, this piece is very dear to me.